is Kira, and today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet these adorable little cats. These are so cute and they work up really quickly. If you're a beginner, check out the videos I have linked down below with tutorials for a magic ring and some of the other basic stitches that I'll be using in today's pattern. Let's go ahead and get started. For supplies, you'll need a pair of scissors, a 5mm crochet hook, a stitch marker and an embroidery needle, 20mm safety eyes, and some polyfill stuffing. For yarn today, I'll be using Premier Parfait Chunky in the colors Teddy Bear and Mushroom. And you'll just need a scrap piece of white and pink plush yarn. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is make the little feet, the back feet. So I just have my brown yarn here, and I'm gonna start by making 6 single crochet into a magic ring. For the next round, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet and then 2 increase stitches and repeat that 2 times to go all the way around. So 1 single crochet and then 2 increase stitches. And then I'm just gonna do that one more time. And then I'm gonna go ahead and place my stitch marker, and just for reference, I like to keep my stitch marker in the last stitch of every round rather than the first stitch of every round. For the next 2 rounds, I'm just gonna do 2 rounds of 10 single crochet a round. For the next round, I'm going to do 3 single crochet and a decrease stitch 2 times. So 1, 2, and 3 single crochet, and then a decrease stitch. And then I'm just going to do that one more time. For the next round, I'm going to do 2 single crochet and then a decrease stitch and repeat that 2 times to go all the way around. So 1, and then 2 single crochet and a decrease stitch. And then I'm just going to do that one more time. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of stuffing into the foot. You don't need a whole lot, just enough to kind of fill it out. Okay, and then to finish this off, I'm just going to kind of close these ends together, and I'm going to make 3 single crochet through both sides. So I'm just going through both sides of the foot. There's 1. Two, and 3, and then you can go ahead and tie off your yarn, but you do want to leave a little bit of a tail so that we can sew this onto the body later. Okay, so here is one of my little back feet, and once you have one of these done, you want to go ahead and repeat these same steps again to make a second back foot. And then we can go ahead and just set these aside for now, and we'll come back to them once we get finished with the body. Okay, next we're gonna get started on one of the front legs. So these ones are gonna be a little bit different than the back legs. And the first thing I'm going to do is just make 6 single crochet in a magic ring. For the next round, I'm going to make 6 increase stitches. And an increase stitch is just 2 single crochet into the same stitch. For the next round, I'm going to make 1 single crochet in an increase stitch and repeat that 6 times to go all the way around. So 1 single crochet and then an increase. And then I'm going to do that 5 more times. For the next round, I'm just going to do 18 single crochet around. For the next round, I'm going to make 6 decrease stitches and then 6 single crochet. So 6 decrease stitches. There's 1. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with 6 single crochet. For the next round, I'm going to go ahead and do 3 rounds of 12 single crochet around. And I'm going to go ahead and do these rounds off camera. And again, it's just 3 rounds of 12 single crochet around. But I'll be right back to show you what to do next. So I just finished my 3 rounds of 12 single crochet around, and I'm actually going to change colors in this last stitch here to my main body color. And then to finish off the front leg, I'm just going to make another 3 rounds of 12 single crochet around using my main body color yarn. So again, I'm going to go ahead and do these off camera real quick. But I'm just doing 3 more rounds of 12 single crochet around using my main body color. Okay, so I just finished my 3 rounds of 12 single crochet around, and I'm going to go ahead and just tie off this yarn. And then I'm going to add a little bit of stuffing into here. And then once you have one of the front legs done how you want it, go ahead and repeat those same steps again to make a second front leg. And then I'm just going to go ahead and set these aside for now, and we'll come back to them once we get started on the body. Next, I'm going to show you how to make one of the hips. So I'm just going in with my main body color, and the first thing I'm going to do is just make a slip knot on my hook. And I'm going to chain 5. So starting in that second stitch from my hook, so I'm going to skip this first one and go into the second stitch from my hook. I'm going to make 3 single crochet. And then in this next chain stitch, I'm going to make 3 single crochet in 1. So 3 single crochet all into this one stitch. So there's 1, and then back into that same stitch. There's 2, and then 1 more time into that same stitch. There's 3, and then I'm going to kind of take my chain and turn it over, and I'm going to be working on the back side of my chain here. So first I'm just going to make 3 single crochet. And then this loop right here is the chain stitch that we originally skipped at the beginning. Into that loop, I'm gonna make another 3 single crochet in one. So 3 single crochet all into that one stitch. And then just to finish this off, I'm gonna make a slip stitch into that very first single crochet that we made, just to kind of round out our little oval shape. And then I'm gonna go ahead and place my stitch marker. For the next round, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet and an increase stitch and repeat that 6 times to go all the way around. So 1 single crochet and an increase stitch. And then I'm going to do that 5 more times. For the next round, I'm going to start by making 2 single crochet. And then I'm going to make 6 increase stitches, and you want to make sure that your increase stitches are kind of centered on the top of this oval that we've created. So 6 increase stitches. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with 10 more single crochet. For the next round, I'm going to start by making 18 single crochet. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with 6 slip stitches. And then for the last round of the hip, I'm just going to make 24 single crochet around. Okay, and then you can go ahead and tie off your yarn. You do not need to worry about leaving a tail. So once you have one hip done, you want to go ahead and repeat those same steps again to make a second hip. And then I'm just going to go ahead and set these aside for now, and we will come back to them once we get started working on the body. Next, we're going to get started working on the ears. And I'm going to be using my darker brown yarn for the ears. I'm just going to start by making 6 single crochet into a magic ring. And then for the next round, I'm going to make 6 increase stitches. For the next round, I'm going to start by making 3 slip stitches. And then I'm going to make 3 single crochet in one. And again, that's just 3 single crochet all into the same stitch. And then I'm going to make 3 single crochet. Another 3 single crochet in one stitch. Three more single crochet. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with another 3 single crochet in one. And then to finish off the ear, I am also just going to make a slip stitch in the next stitch just to kind of smooth everything out. And then you can go ahead and tie off your yarn. And then you do want to leave a little bit of a tail on the ear so that we can sew these onto the head later. Once you have one ear all complete, you want to go ahead and repeat those same steps again to make a second ear. And then I'm just going to go ahead and set these aside for now, and we will come back to them once we get started working on the head. Next, we're going to make a tail. And to make the tail, I'm just using this darker brown yarn, or at least I'm going to start with this. And I'm just going to start by making 6 single crochet into a magic ring. For the next 2 rounds, I'm just going to make 6 single crochet around. And then in that last stitch there, I'm actually going to change colors back over to my main body color. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and just do 8 more rounds of 6 single crochet around using this main body color. And at some point you are going to want to turn the tail to be right side out before it gets too long. Okay, so here's my 8 rounds of 6 single crochet around, and I'm just going to close off the tail by making 3 single crochet through both sides. And then you can go ahead and tie off the yarn, and you don't need to worry about leaving a tail. And then I'm just going to go ahead and set this aside for now, and we'll come back to it once we get started working on the body. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and get started working on the body. So I'm just going to start by making 8 single crochet into a magic ring. For the next round, I'm going to make 8 increase stitches. For the next round, I'm going to make 1 single crochet and then an increase stitch and repeat that 8 times to go all the way around. So 1 single crochet and then an increase stitch, and then I'm just going to repeat that all the way around. For the next round, I'm going to do 3 single crochet and then an increase stitch and repeat that 6 times to go all the way around. So 1, 2 and 3 single crochet, and then an increase stitch. And then I'm going to do that 5 more times. Alright, in this next round we're going to be crocheting the hips into the body. So I'm just going to start by making 4 single crochet. And then I'm going to grab my first hip, and to attach the hip, what I'm going to do, I have the pretty side of my body facing up, which just means that the tail for my magic ring is facing away from me. And the tail from my slip knot on my hip is facing up. This down here is the bottom of the hip, and I know that because it's closer to where we tied off the yarn. So what I'm going to do is find these 6 stitches that are centered at the bottom of the hip, which are these 6 here, and I'm going to line those up on the back side of my body. So I'm going to put this behind my body and line up these 6 stitches with the next 6 stitches on my body, and then I'm going to make 6 stitches through both of these pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there is my first hip attached, and it should look something like this, where once you kind of open it up, both insides are facing each other, and then from the outside you'll be able to see the pretty sides of both. Next, I'm just going to make 9 single crochet. And then I'm going to grab my other hip and attach it the exact same way. So I just have the pretty side of my body facing up, and then I have the inside of my hip facing up. I know that this is the bottom of my hip because this is where we tied off the yarn, and I'm going to find those 6 stitches that are centered at the bottom of my hip, line them up with the next 6 stitches on my body, and then make 6 single crochet through both pieces. Then I'm just going to finish off this round with 5 more single crochet. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut off this yarn, but I'm not going to tie it off. So I'm going to cut my yarn, but I'm going to leave this here, and we're going to come back to it later and we can reattach our yarn. I'm going to leave my stitch marker here as well. And I'm just going to flip this over so I'm looking at the other side. And what we're going to do now is make the belly. So what we're looking at are, these are the hips. This is going to be the front of the body, and then back here is going to be the back of the body. And we're going to do the front and the back of the body in 2 different little panels. So right now what I'm going to do is just make a slip knot on my hook using that same main body colored yarn. When you make your slip knot, you want to leave a really long tail on your slip knot that we will end up using later. So I'm going to make my slip knot, and then I just have this really long tail that we will use later. What I'm going to do is insert my slip knot into this first stitch here that's on the inside of the right hip, looking at my hips like this. And I'm just going to make 9 single crochet across the front of my body. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And I'm just going to continue to do this for the next 5 rows. So I'm going to make 9 single crochet across, chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to repeat that for the next 5 rows. So you should have 6 rows total. This was our first one. Okay, so I just completed my 6 total rows of 9 single crochet, and what I'm going to do now is chain 1 and turn, and then for the last row of this belly that we're going to make right now, we're going to do 1 single crochet in a decrease stitch 3 times. So starting in that second stitch for my hook, I'm going to make 1 single crochet and then a decrease stitch. And then I'm going to do that 2 more times. So here's what my belly looks like. So you should have now 2 hips and a little panel for the belly. And now we're going to go ahead and attach the belly to our hips. So to do that, what we're going to do is kind of fold this so it's a little bit inside out. So I'm going to take my hip here and I'm going to count 6 stitches up from where it's attached on the body. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm just going to mark this with my embroidery needle real quick. Then to attach these, what we're going to do is crochet the 2 pieces together down the side here from the top, going from the top of the hip down towards the body. And just remember that I'm working on the inside of my cat's body here. So this is going to be the outside or the pretty side, and this what I'm looking at is the inside. So I'm going to fold these both inwards. And then I'm going to kind of turn it over here. And like I said, I marked the next 6 stitches on my hip. So to attach these 2 pieces, I'm going to make 6 single crochet down my hip and through the top of the belly to connect them. So just starting in that first stitch that I marked, I'm going to take my hook and go through both pieces there and then make 1 single crochet, and then I'm just going to repeat this all the way down the side of the hip till I get back down to the body. And then after you've made your 6 single crochet, you can go ahead and just tie off this yarn. And then when I kind of turn this back to be right side out, you can see that from the front, the hip and the belly are nice and attached to each other. So now we're just going to repeat this again on this other side. And to do that, I'm going to take this really long tail that we left on our slip knot when we started making the belly. And instead of working from the top of the hip down, this time we're going to work from the body up towards the top of the hip. So I have my tail here that I'm going to use to crochet these together. And just like last time, I'm looking at the inside of my body. And I'm just going to kind of fold these 2 pieces together, working still on the inside of the body. And starting in this first stitch here on my hip, I'm going to go through that first stitch and then the first stitch of my belly. And I'm just going to make a slip stitch really quick with this yarn to secure that first stitch. And then I'm going to make 5 more single crochet up the side of the hip through both pieces. Okay, and then you can go ahead and tie off this yarn. And when you kind of straighten this back out, here's what mine looks like from the inside. And when I flip it over, this is what it looks like on the outside. So I just have my belly and my 2 hips. And then we're also going to start building a panel for the back as well. Before we do that, I'm just going to kind of cut off some of these extra tails so it just to make things a little cleaner. So now for the back of the body, this is going to be a little bit similar to what we just did on the belly, but instead of making rows and like making a panel and then having to crochet it onto the hips, we're going to just crochet directly into each hip from side to side and work our way up. Which I know that sounds confusing, but don't worry, I will show you. So I'm just going to go back to the back of the body where we have our stitch marker, and we cut the yarn but we did not tie it off. And to start this next section, I'm just going to start by making 4 single crochet, and you will have to just reattach your yarn at some point whenever you run out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quickly. So just 4 single crochet, and then I'm gonna come over to my hip, and in this next open stitch, this is a stitch that we used to attach it to the bottom of the body previously. So in this next open stitch on my hip, I'm gonna make a slip stitch. And then I'm gonna turn my work over. So that slip stitch kind of acts like the same as a chain 1 would before you turn. So I'm just turning my work over and then starting in that second stitch from my hook. So I'm going to skip the slip stitch that we just did because, again, like I said, that's going to act as our chain 1. Starting in that second stitch from my hook, I'm going to make 9 single crochet. So you can also go ahead and remove your stitch marker. And then again on this other hip, when I get to the hip, I'm going to go into that next open stitch on my hip and make a slip stitch. And then turn my work over. And we're going to kind of continue this pattern all the way up. In this next row, we're going to be crocheting the tail into the body. So again, I'm skipping my first stitch, going into that second stitch from my hook. I'm going to make 3 single crochet. And then I'm going to grab my tail, and I'm just going to line up the 3 stitches that are on the top of my tail with the next 3 stitches on the body here, and then make 3 single crochet through both pieces. So 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to finish off this row with another 3 single crochet before slip stitching into that hip again. So like I said, again, I'm going to make another slip stitch into the next open stitch on my hip, and then I'm going to turn my work over. So the next 9 rows are going to be pretty much the exact same thing. So I'm going to do, starting in that second stitch for my hook, I'm going to do 9 single crochet, slip stitch into the hip, and then turn and repeat it 9 times. So I'll do this next one with you here, and then I'm going to do the rest of them off camera. So starting in that second stitch for my hook, I'm going to make 9 single crochet, and then slip stitch into that next stitch on my hip, turn my work, and then repeat it. So that was 1 row, and I'm going to do 8 more rows just like that. I'm going to go ahead and do these off camera, but then I'll be right back to show you what to do after that. Okay, so I just finished my 9 rows of single crochet, and this is what it looks like. So you should have now kind of that panel built for the back of the body, the hips, and the belly. And moving forward, we're going to be working back and around again, so we're just going to work all the way around the top of the body here. Like I said at the beginning, I like to keep my stitch marker in the last stitch of the round, and I know that this is going to be the last stitch of the round for the next round, so I'm just going to go ahead and place my stitch marker right there. And then just for this round, because we made our last slip stitch into that hip, I'm going to start in the second stitch from my hook and then work all the way around the body. For this next round, I'm going to start by making 9 single crochet, and again, I'm just starting in that second stitch from my hook. And then I'm just going to skip over to that next stitch on my hip, and I'm going to make 2 single crochet, and then a decrease stitch, and then another 2 single crochet, and then we're going to jump over to the belly and do the exact same thing. So another 2 single crochet, a decrease stitch, and then another 2 single crochet, and then we're gonna come over back to this other hip, and I'm gonna start with 2 single crochet, another decrease stitch, and then 2 more single crochet to finish off the round. we are gonna be crocheting the front legs into the body in this next round. First, I'm just gonna start with 13 single crochet. And then I'm gonna grab my first front leg, and as you can see here, this is kind of like the foot part of the front leg. So I wanna make sure that this is facing forward. And I'm gonna line this up with the body so that my front foot part is facing forward. And I'm gonna find the 3 stitches that are centered at the back of my leg. So for me, that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, these 3 right here. And then I'm gonna make 3 single crochet through my front leg and my body. So I'm just gonna grab that first stitch from my leg and go into the next stitch on my body. And there's 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the body. And then I'm going to grab my second front leg and attach it the exact same way. So I'm going to have this front part of the foot facing forward, and I'm going to find the 3 stitches that are centered on the back of my leg, and then make 3 single crochet through both the front leg and the body. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with 4 more single crochet. Alright, and then moving forward, we're going to be working around the body and then around the front legs, back onto the body, around the other front leg, and then back around. So we're no longer going to be working in these stitches up here. For the next round, I'm going to start by making 1 single crochet and a decrease stitch 3 times. So 1 single crochet and then a decrease stitch, and I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. And then I'm going to make 4 single crochet, and then we're going to jump over to the front leg. So just coming into this next open stitch on my front leg, I'm going to make a single crochet, but you do want to make sure to make this single crochet pretty tight just because it's connecting that body and the leg, and we don't want to leave any gaps in there. So there's 1, and I want to make 9 single crochet around my front leg. And then I'm going to make 1 stitch back onto my body, so into that center stitch right there. And again, this is one of those single crochet that you want it to be pretty tight just because it's connecting the body and the leg. And then we're jumping back over to the other leg, and we're going to make 9 more single crochet around this leg. So I'm just going into that next open stitch on my leg, and I'm going to make my single crochet. And then I'm going to jump back onto my body and finish off the round with 4 more single crochet. And again, you want to make sure to make that single crochet pretty tight there, just so I don't have any major gaps in between here. For the next round, I'm going to start by making 6 single crochet. And then I'm going to make 2 decrease stitches. And then 19 single crochet. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with 2 more decrease stitches. And I was going to mention, if you do have anywhere where there's gaps big enough that you want to stitch them up, you can use these tails that are left from your front legs to go around and stitch up those gaps. For the next round, I'm going to start by making 3 decrease stitches. And then 2 single crochet and a decrease stitch, and then 15 single crochet, and then I'm going to make another decrease stitch, and then I'm just going to finish off the round with 2 more single crochet. For the next 2 rounds, I'm just going to do 2 rounds of 24 single crochet a round. So I'm going to go ahead and do these off camera real quick, but again, you're just going to do 2 rounds of 24 single crochet a round. So I just finished my 2 rounds of 24 single crochet a round, and I'm going to go ahead and add some stuffing into the body. You do want to make sure to stuff each hip really good and the back. And then you also want to add some more stuffing into where you connected the front legs to the body. For the next round, I'm going to start, we're going to decrease, so for the next round I'm going to make 12 decrease stitches to go all the way around. So really quick before we get started on making the head, I'm just going to finish up the body. So with these front arms or front legs, feel free to leave them kind of like sticking outwards like this. I'm going to take a little piece of yarn and pin mine down to the body just so that they sit a little bit closer together, like they maybe would naturally if there was a cat sitting. So to do that, I'm just going to take a scrap piece of this dark brown yarn and thread it onto my embroidery needle. And then I'm just going to kind of hold these where I want them in the front of the body and grab a stitch from the back of the foot. Pull that through, but leave a little tail over here. And then I'm just going to grab another stitch from the body. Go under here to the other side and do the same kind of thing. Grab a stitch from the foot and then back into the body. And then I'm just going to bring this over here to where I first inserted it. And then when I tie these two together, you can see it'll just keep those front arms nice and secured where I want them. And then I'm just going to weave these ends into the body. And then the last step to finishing our body here is just to sew on these back feet. So what I'm going to do is take the tail that I left on the back foot and just thread that onto my embroidery needle. And then I'm just going to kind of line this up on the bottom of the body where I want the back legs to sit. And for me, that's kind of right underneath my hip towards the front legs. And I'm just going to sew this onto the body. And then once you're happy with how the back leg is sewn on, you can go ahead and just tie off that yarn and weave the ends into the body. And then I'm just going to repeat this again with the other foot on the other side. So here's what my back feet look like all stitched on. Now we're going to go ahead and get started working on the head. So I'm going to make, the next round is just going to be 12 increase stitches. For the next round, I'm going to make 3 single crochet and then an increase stitch and repeat that 6 times to go all the way around. So 1, 2, 3 single crochet and then an increase stitch. And then I'm going to do that 5 more times. And then for this next round, it's going to be important that our stitch marker is centered at the back of the body. So I'm going to make a few extra single crochet just to shift over where my stitch marker is before I start this next round. So that looks about right to me. I just had to make 3 extra single crochet, but yours might be a little different. So once your stitch marker is centered at the back of the body, then you can go ahead and start the next round. For the next round, I'm going to start by making 6 single crochet. And then I'm going to make 1 single crochet in an increase stitch 2 times. So 1 single crochet and then an increase stitch. And then I'm going to do that one more time. And then I'm going to make 4 single crochet. Two increase stitches. Another 4 single crochet. And then I'm going to make 1 increase stitch and 1 single crochet 2 times. So an increase stitch and then 1 single crochet, and then I'm going to do that again. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with 6 more single crochet. For the next round, I'm going to start by making 6 single crochet. And then I'm going to do 2 single crochet in an increase stitch 2 times. So 1, 2 single crochet and then an increase stitch. And then I'm going to do that one more time. And then I'm going to make 12 single crochet. For the next round, I'm going to make 1 increase stitch and then 2 single crochet 2 times. So 1 increase stitch and then 2 single crochet. And then I'm going to do that one more time. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with 6 more single crochet. For the next round, I'm just going to make 40 single crochet a round. I'm going to go ahead and do this round off camera, but again, you're just doing 40 single crochet a round, and then I'll be right back. So I just finished my 40 single crochet round, and for the next round, we're going to start again with 6 single crochet. And then I'm going to do 2 single crochet and a decrease stitch 2 times. So 1 and 2 single crochet and then a decrease stitch. And then I'm going to do that one more time. And then I'm going to make 12 single crochet. And then I'm going to make 1 decrease stitch and 2 single crochet 2 times. So 1 decrease stitch and then 2 single crochet. And then I'm just going to do that one more time. And then I'm just going to finish off the round with 6 more single crochet. For the next 3 rounds, I'm just going to do 3 rounds of 36 single crochet around. I'm going to go ahead and do these 3 rounds off camera, but again, I'm just going to do 3 rounds of 36 single crochet around, and then I'll be right back to show you what to do next. Okay, so I just finished my 3 rounds of 36 single crochet around, and now we're going to start decreasing the head. For the next round, I'm going to make 4 single crochet in a decrease stitch and repeat that 6 times to go all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 single crochet and then a decrease stitch. And then I'm just going to repeat that 5 more times. For the next round, I'm going to make 3 single crochet and then a decrease stitch and repeat that 6 times to go all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, and then a decrease stitch. And then I'm going to do that 5 more times. For the next round, I'm going to do 2 single crochet and a decrease stitch 6 times to go all the way around. So 1 single crochet, so 1 and 2 single crochet and then a decrease stitch. And then I'm going to do that 5 more times. And then now's a good time to go ahead and add some stuffing into the head and attach the safety eyes. I do like to stuff before I add my safety eyes, but feel free to add your safety eyes first if that's what you prefer. For my eyes, I have them placed I have them placed 6 rows back from where we currently are. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I have them in between those 2 rows, and then they are about 7 stitches apart from each other. And it's totally okay if they look too far apart right now. We're gonna do some face shaping to bring them in closer together. Once you're happy with the placement of your eyes, you can go ahead and just pop the backings on them. And then we're going to go ahead and close up the head. So for the next round, I'm going to make 1 single crochet and then a decrease stitch and repeat that 6 times to go all the way around. 1 single crochet and then a decrease stitch. And then I'm going to repeat that 5 more times. And then for the last round of the head, I'm just going to make 6 decrease stitches. So I'm just going to tuck a little more stuffing into the head to round it out. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn. And then to close this gap up here, I'm going to take this tail that I have left here and thread it onto my embroidery needle. And then I'm just going to weave this in and out of all 6 of these stitches that I have left. And then once you've gone through all 6 stitches, you can go ahead and just pull this tight to close the gap. And then I'm just going to tuck the ends into the head. Alright, and then I'm just going to cut off the excess. And with this scrap tail here that you have, we're going to go right into shaping the face a little bit. So I'm going to insert this at the top inside corner of my eye and have it come over to the top inside corner of the other eye. Pull that through, but make sure to leave a little bit of a tail over here. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom inside corner of this same eye, over to the bottom inside corner of my other eye. Just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and just tie these 2 ends together. And the tighter that you tie them, the closer together it's going to bring those eyes. So feel free to tie them as tight or as loose as you like. And then I'm just going to tie off the yarn and weave the ends into the head. I'm gonna go ahead and sew on my ears, and to do that I'm just gonna grab my embroidery needle, and first I'm gonna take the tail that's coming out of the ear from my magic ring and just weave that down to the bottom, and I will tuck that in. And then I'm just gonna grab the tail that we left on the ear and kind of figure out where on the head do I want these to go. And then I'm just going to kind of hold it where I want it and sew it in place. And then once you're happy with how it's sewn on, you can go ahead and just tie off the yarn. Weave the ends into the head, and then repeat this again on the other side with the other ear. And you can go ahead and weave in this other tail as well into the head. So we're going to do a little bit more face shaping. I'm going to insert my needle with a long piece of my body colored yarn underneath here, kind of at the neck. And I'm going to have it come out right on the outside of my eye over here. Pull that through and leave a tail down here. And then I'm going to skip over here and come over to the other side of my eye. And then have the yarn come out on the bottom inside corner of that other eye. And then I'm going to thread it back down on the outside corner of this eye to my chin. About 1 stitch over from where we inserted it the first time. I'm going to pull these tight. And when I tie these together, it's going to kind of bring those cheeks down a little bit. just like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just tie off this yarn and weave the ends into the body. And then we just have a couple more details left to add. The next thing I'm gonna do here is just take 2 little scrap pieces of white plush yarn, and we're gonna make some little white details around the outside of the eyes. So I'm just gonna thread one of them onto my embroidery needle. And then I'm gonna insert this at the top center of my eye and have it come off to the side here. Pull it out and pull it off of your needle. And then I'm gonna rethread my needle onto the other end of the yarn and insert this at the bottom center of my eye, and then have it come back out to the side of the head where we had it come out the first time. And then when I pull these tight, it's just gonna make that little white detail around the outside of the eye. And I'm gonna go ahead, tie these ends together and weave them into the head, and then you wanna make sure to repeat this again on the other eye. And then to embroider the nose, I'm just gonna take a small amount of pink plush yarn and thread that onto my embroidery needle. And I'm gonna insert this just up in here between my eyes, kind of towards the bottom of my eyes. And then I'm just gonna loop the yarn around these stitches a handful of times until I'm happy with how my nose looks. And then I'm gonna insert my needle into the very center of this nose, kind of underneath those stitches, and have it come straight down just a couple of rows, and we're gonna make a little line for the mouth. And then I'm gonna insert it back into the center point that I first brought it in from, and out to the side here where we very first inserted the yarn. And then you just want to pull it pretty tight in there to create that mouth. And then once you're happy with how that looks, you can go ahead and just tie the ends together and weave them into the head. And then our last step is optional, but if you'd like to embroider like some little stripes or something onto the cat, then that is the last thing we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go back to this kind of dark brown yarn here and thread some of that onto my embroidery needle. And then to create stripes, I'm gonna insert this at the top of the head here, wherever I want my first stripe to be, and have it come out wherever I want the first stripe to kind of end. So it'll be about this long. And you want to make sure to leave a little tail on this end. And then I'm going to go back into that same exact spot to make my first stripe, and I'm going to have it come out wherever I want my second stripe to end. So for me, that's going to be over here, kind of next to it, but a little bit shorter. And I'm going to bring my needle back and have it go back into the head where I want this stripe to end, and over to my other side to make a third stripe over here. And then I'm going to have my stripe start here in line with this other little one, and I'm going to bring it back over to the center point where we first inserted the yarn. and then you can go ahead and just tie off that yarn and weave in the ends. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and making this pattern. If you do make this pattern, I would absolutely love to see your photos, and you can tag me on Instagram at Crochet with Kira. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.